Hey everyone, I'm Cole Novak. I'm here today with my friend Jessie Harris. We're going to be having a conversation about piano, playing piano in church. Jessie, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I'm good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited to
Good.
be back having a conversation with you today.
Yes.
So we're talking about piano. You play piano.
I do.
You do?
I do. Here it is.
Wow.
There it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get started playing piano? Did you grow up like in a musical family or anything? Tell me about it.
Yeah, all of my siblings are musical. My two older siblings, when I was 4, they were taking lessons.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just itching, apparently. I don't remember
Feeling
what I was
left
thinking
out.
when I was 4, but apparently I was itching to take lessons. And so I started taking lessons once a week for 15 minutes when I was little baby 4-year-old. And then
That's amazing.
I just took lessons for, probably about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then around that time kind of transitioned into just playing in a church context.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
I love it. Once a week for 15 minutes.
That was
for
my,
a 4-year-old is amazing.
That was my capacity.
I have little children that want to play instruments. I'm like, how do I do that? I love that. I'm gonna try that with my kids.
Yeah, do it.
So as you grew up in this like musical family, playing in church, so like where has that kind of brought you to? Like where are the different places that you've played, experience like that?
Yeah. So I chose to study worship leadership at the King's University, actually. So I got to really kind of pick up piano lessons again in that context, which was actually really good for me because I hadn't played classically in a while, but it also gave me the really good balance of playing in a worship context in a church too. So that was just really key for me. I felt like it really helped continue my growth. And then from there, continue to play in church, a part of the worship team here at Gateway, and yeah, it's been good.
I love it. You have such a, to me, unique way of playing. I was thinking about it this morning, and I think about in Scripture where David is playing the harp for King Saul, and it says that the evil spirits leave, and like all of that coming out of just time spent with the instrument, you know? And when I think about your playing, like when you put your hands to the keyboard, it feels like we're all just getting to join in on like your quiet time with God, which is such a beautiful gift to be able to give to other people, because a lot of the time, I'm sure you know this, like worship leading can feel like trying to pull people along, but if you can just kind of set the space and allow people to join, I think it's a beautiful thing. So tell me about how, as your playing style, like how did you kind of discover what you sound like on the piano?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has come from listening. I feel like I rely more on my ear than I do, reading music. I feel like even though I took lessons, I really have always leaned more heavily on my ear. I remember even in lessons, my piano teacher, she'd show me songs that we could start learning, and she would always tell me to she would basically play the song, and she would say, okay, now don't just listen, like actually read the music. Because I would try to just memorize, whatever she was playing and just listen to it. So both are really valid and really helpful. But I feel like I've always relied heavily on my ear when it comes to playing. So basically, I feel like I've just listened to a lot of other people and listened to a lot of music that I like and that is pleasant to hear, and just like try to like figure out, okay, what is that melody? I really like that. Would that work over these chords in this song? Stuff like that. I think it just comes from listening.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great, because sometimes it feels like there's one or the other. Like your teacher was saying, like, no, actually read it and play it the way that it is. Don't just listen to it, but there's something really beautiful about the marriage of the two, where you have kind of the foundation, chord structure, music theory, but then listening and actually, I feel like when you're learning an instrument especially, learn things that you want to play. I think that's kind of the first step. Yeah. That's awesome.
I think even too, like lessons, classical lessons, I remember when I kind of transitioned into just playing in church, I was like, okay, that's completely different. Yeah. It doesn't aid what I'm doing here in a church context at all, but it actually does, I've realized, just because classical is so melodic and it covers, the whole piano a lot. And that really has been key. I feel like whenever I hear piano players play, I can tell if they've grown up classically trained just because of their choices in what they decide to do. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's really interesting. So you talked about kind of transitioning out of lessons in a more kind of like classical teaching experience into a worship environment, which is really different. But what are some of the things that you learned in that process of jumping into what a worship service looks like and the ins and outs and playing with other people?
Yeah. I know a big one that I've run into is just overplaying in general, because as someone who took lessons, you do cover the whole piano and it is just you playing, you know? But now you're playing with a team, you're playing with so many other people, and you don't have to cover the whole piano and you don't have to play everything all the time, because everybody else has different parts that they're playing and you want to serve the overall song and the overall sound of everything. So it's not just a one-man show, like you actually get to play a part in something that's not just yourself. So I feel like I've learned that the simpler you play is the better. And in that, you actually allow yourself to listen to what everybody else is playing and complement what they're playing, or you hear, okay, now it's a down moment, I can carry this moment, this is kind of something that falls on me. But overall, not overplaying allows you to listen to everybody else and really help serve where you're needed most.
Yeah, I love that. I love the combination, like with playing with people, you have to listen more, because if you're just playing a classical piece and it's giving you every note you play, then you're all over the place. You have, this is what I'm going to do. But then when you come into a service and you have to listen to everybody around you and make different choices. So specifically with that, like what different choices do you make when you're in a worship service? Like if you're playing a song by yourself, you play it one way, but where would you kind of fall on the keyboard? Maybe some specific examples of what you would do and maybe what not to do. Yeah.
I know I've been told so many times, like, this kind of area right here is where you can live. This is like where you really shine through in the mix, in the overall sound. You don't have to play, you know, way down here all of the time,
big
because
bass notes all the time.
Somebody's covering that area, you know? You don't need to step on their toes. That doesn't mean you're just constrained to this area. You can, you know, extend past it, especially whenever it's in a down moment and it is just you. You can explore a little bit more. But for the most part, like, you do kind of have an area where you live, and that's really where you're gonna shine the most.
Would you maybe give us an example, like a simple chord progression, and maybe give us an example of it low and then kind of mid and then maybe even high to kind of give just an example of what that sounds like?
So let's see. If I was playing, I'm trying to think of a song. Maybe something like No Longer Slaves. In the key of, you know, E, let's say. I could play it down here, which is kind of cool, but also so low. And like kind of unnecessary. You could just move it back up here and not play octaves in your left hand. And just, it kind of, I don't know, it shines through a little bit more.
Very much.
It sounds powerful down here, but you can also play it, you know, stronger, and it still has the same effect. If I wanted to play No Longer Slaves wrong, if I wanted to just be obnoxious and just
what not to do,
completely, break every single rule that you should have, it would sound maybe something, you know, terrible, like this. I'm gonna have to concentrate to do this now. Something like. You know, something like that, where it's just like, you're just going crazy.
I think our definition of the word just terrible might not be the same, but maybe not appropriate for the moment.
Not appropriate, it's just like, it's too much, and you know what, like, that simple lead line is great to stick with, you know? And, you know, guitars may be doing something that's busy too. So
we probably are.
You just need to simplify.
Knowing us guitar players. Well, in talking about dynamics, you have a very like soft feel and approach. Is that something you've had to navigate? Like talking with sound guys.
Yes.
I know for me as a guitar player, having a good relationship with the guy running front of house is absolutely essential. So how do you kind of come at that?
I have been told multiple times over and over in my life to play, like, to dig into the keys.
Quote,
to
dig in.
Dig in. It's a really nice way of saying,
don't
please
sandbag.
play louder, which is good. You need to be able to have the feel of the song. If it's in a really full like bridge, you can't be playing like this. You need to serve what the moment is sounding like. And so you really need to be able to dig in whenever you need to, but also be sensitive and be gentle to the moment whenever it is down and just really chill. So you need to have the ability to be aware of what's happening and how you can best serve the song.
Yeah, and so much of like the common thread through everything you're saying is just it's listening.
It's
being aware.
It's key.
Listening to other people, listening to the Holy Spirit, listening
Yeah.
to kind of what's happening in the room.
Absolutely.
And there's something really beautiful about the sensitivity in that. And that's something that is learned, and so you've learned that really well. So talking about playing piano, you're also a vocalist and worship leader. So how do you approach playing and singing at the same time?
Yeah.
I know that I remember when I started doing that playing guitar, it freaked my brain out so bad because I'm already trying to do this many things.
Right, yeah. It's
adding another thing into it. So kind of what choices do you make when you're playing piano and leading as well?
Yeah, I know just off the bat, I tend to stay in one area. So usually around here, just because it will help me give priority to what I'm singing because the lyrics, that kind of comes first whenever you're leading a song. But you also want to be prepared enough to where you're not, looking down at your hands. You're not like guessing what the next chord is. So coming prepared, knowing your stuff is huge whenever you have to sing and play. And even memorizing your lyrics. All of that preparation is everything.
Yes.
But practically, I do say...
You actually memorize lyrics? You don't just read the screen at the back of the room?
I try. I cannot say I do that every time.
We call it a confidence monitor, which I think is hilarious because I think it should probably be called the insecurity monitor.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't know what I'm doing right now, and I'm 100% guilty of that.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I try, but I don't succeed all the time.
Same. So preparation and playing and singing, all of that.
Yes, yeah. So it really helps to know your chords, know where you want to flow, where you can flow easily to.
Yeah.
Knowing like each progression of each part of the song, but also practically just, I typically stay more locked into kind of this middle area so I don't have to be looking around and be distracted on, where my hands are moving.
Yeah.
And with that comes, knowing inversions of chords so that you can move your hand slightly to change chords, but you don't have to move, to play a root chord everywhere.
Yeah.
You can, if I'm going from the 1 to the 5, I can just go right here, Like I know, okay, so I can get the same sound, the same chord with just like switching out a couple notes with my fingers instead of moving my hand completely. So that's really helpful.
So say if we took like a chord progression, like a 1, 5, 6, 4 kind of thing, would you show us what like a typical piano chording like triads would sound like, and then how you would approach it? Sure. If you were singing and kind of simplifying.
Yeah, so let's say we're in the key of C. So if we're gonna do 1, 5, what did you say, 6, 4?
6, 4, yeah.
6.
Classic pop punk
4.
progression.
There you go. So if this is your, block chords, your root chords.
Classic piano sound, exactly.
There you go. If you wanted to, not move as much, I would do something like this. Something like that, where you're still keeping the integrity of the chord, but you, something like this. You could do this. You can add in that 1, because the 1 always works over any chord.
Always. The 1 and the 5, when in doubt.
Over your 6 chord, adding in the 7th is always really a beautiful choice.
Yes.
So your hand is literally right here the whole time. You can just keep that. And then same thing for your 4. You can keep in your 1, because that always works. And then keep in the 4, so it keeps the integrity of the chord. And then you can just keep that 5, because it sounds nice and it keeps the integrity of the chord. So there you go.
Brilliant.
There you go. Yeah.
What I love about that too is when you're listening to it, you can hear how there's more like sonic space.
Right. It opens
created.
everything up.
So like for vocal melody, for guitar parts, for anything else that's happening in the song, you immediately kind of create this space, but it's also not empty. Like you're not lacking anything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, so talking about singing and playing, so what about if you're the only instrument? I know like leading worship, sometimes you'll be in a small group setting or something like that where it's just you and Jesus you're by yourself.
Right.
Okay, so how do you approach that where you're maybe in that moment not thinking as much about just filling up this space, but you're actually trying to make yourself sound a little bit bigger. So how would you do that?
Yeah, I think with that, you need to, I think you need to be aware that your low end really kind of gives you energy and helps build a song.
Yeah.
So whenever you're playing and you really want to build something, like playing octaves down here really helps.
The 80s low octaves are like my favorite thing in the world.
So good, you know? So low octaves really help give energy if you want to do that. And the good thing with that is you don't have to, you know, if you know what the feeling of an octave is in your left hand, you don't have to look a ton because you kind of just have the feeling of it down.
Yeah.
And then, you know, same thing, kind of, you can play octaves in your right hand. Same thing with that. That kind of, it's simple, you know, keeping just like an octave with maybe the fifth in your right hand. It's simple enough to where you don't have to think about it too much, but it really does kind of give a lot of energy, and it is kind of filling up the space of the piano.
Well, especially looking like you literally see your hands. You're down low, and then you're kind of like high mids. There's so much space in between that a vocal could fill that space. And so I want to talk about you play melodies and like throw different things in there in a really unique way where you're not just kind of like referencing the same old melody like hooks in the song, but could you kind of explain a little bit of your process of how you add interest while also not taking focus away from maybe the vocal melody or whatever else is happening?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing what your chords are and what works over your chords. And I think that just comes with trial and error, you know? Like a lot of times you won't, let's see, I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe that's really pretty a lot, like a 7 over a 4. But also you have to move and have the resolution of it
you
to
can't
make
just
it
leave
sound
it there.
nice, you know? So like you have to know, okay, this works over a chord, and even if it doesn't, if it creates dissonance, I need to also resolve it.
Dissonance, then resolve.
Yeah, you need to have the contrast of the two. So I think just knowing what your chords are, what works, just playing by yourself a ton, and figuring out what sounds nice. You know, what sounds gross? I don't want to play that. So figuring out, you know, just adding in other notes to what sounds pleasant. And also, you know, knowing, okay, that's a 7th chord. That's a 4 major 7. Yes, that
You're
is.
looking at me and I'm thinking to myself, she knows so much more music theory than I do.
I second guess myself a lot. But knowing that, like, okay, that top note sounds really nice. I don't have to play this whole chord. I can play this. I can leave off this middle note. I can leave off that note because it's covered up here. Stuff like that. And then you can just move around with it and just do stuff like that.
That's blowing my mind.
Just play, just practice, basically, is what I'm saying. Just play around and figure out what works.
I mean, I don't know about everybody watching, but for me sitting here, it's obvious that you've spent time in that place. Just you and the piano and Jesus, just playing around and having fun and enjoying the gift that God gave you. And that's something that's really beautiful. So in closing, talking about that, talking about going and just spending time with God, with the instrument, what would your encouragement be to somebody who's learning to play for the first time? Maybe they, you know, have the classical training and they're wanting to get more into playing in worship services. What would your encouragement be for them?
I would say be confident in the fact that you are you are on your team, if you're on a team, that you are on this team for a reason, that you have a vital part to play, and that truly the Lord can play through you to minister to people, and that you don't just have to show up and play your block chords, but that you actually have the opportunity to listen to heaven, like to hear the song of the Lord and like hear melodies of heaven, and that you have the ability to be a vessel in which God can move through you and actually touch and speak to his people and really like change lives. Like you really are a vessel in which he can really use. And so be confident in that, and listen and practice and spend time, all of those good things. You're a part for a reason, and you have a big part to play, and don't belittle the gift that God has given you.
Yes, and amen. Yeah. Yes, so good. Jessie, thank you so much for talking with me today. You're amazing. You're a gift to us here at Gateway. You're a gift to the worldwide internets as well. I hope all of you enjoyed this conversation. We'll see you next time.